Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Rob Staton and Robbie Williams here. We are going to talk about the Seattle's 2 picks in the second round. They've obviously traded out of round 3 and got a sizable deal from the Denver Broncos in the process. So that rings a bell, doesn't it? But we'll come back to that. It's not quite the haul they got from the Russell Wilson selection, but still quite interesting anyway. I've just seen a pick that's really surprised me, actually. The draft's still going on, so we'll react to some of the picks as they're coming in. I've just seen that Kobe Turner has been taken in round 3. I'm really surprised by that team going early. It's going to be a little bit distracting looking at the picks. We'll try and give some analysis on guys who come off the board who we would have liked to fall to Seattle. There are still some big names out there, Robbie, that the Seahawks could get in day 3. But let's start talking about the 2 picks that they have made in round 2. I really like this. I don't think I can give the Seahawks an A+ so far, like last year, because this time last year, they'd just taken Abraham Lucas, who I just was convinced was going to be a good player, has shown to be a really good player. And an A+ grade should really be saved for when you are going out there and landing somebody like that as well. But I think this is a solid A. I think this is a really solid A. I think the Derick Hall and the Zach Charbonnet picks show that they've come into this draft with a plan, Robbie. I think all you can ever ask for as a fan is that they have a clear plan. You know the direction that the team's going. And this has been a draft where character has been key. They're drafting captains. They're drafting heart and soul players. I've said it. I said it last week when we did the stream, Robbie, that I'd spoken to somebody who knows a lot about the Seahawks. It's been in that locker room. And I said, what do you think they're going to be after? And he said, firebrand players, the new era of leadership. That's what they're going to be looking for. And with Witherspoon and with Derick Hall and with Zach Charbonnet, Robbie, that's what they're getting. They are going back to what worked for them in the past. Big, physical, aggressive players. That's what they're going for in this draft. And for me, I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it as well. And the thing is, it's like you just said, they're getting guys who captains and, but they're getting guys who are alphas, like guys who are just straight dogs, guys who get after it, love the game, seem passionate. I really, really like Derick Hall. That guy he's a get after the quarterback kind of guy. And he's long. He's, if we couldn't get Will McDonald, this is a guy that, we were really high on, earlier. So pretty stoked to get him at 37. And then, I understand why some people are upset with the running back. There's positions that are a bigger need than, say, running back. But we are a Ken Walker injury away from having DJ Dallas be our starting running back. So, and Zach Charbonnet is the dude. I mean, that guy, he's a perfect third down back. I think he's going to be a great compliment. And, I think the same people who were complaining last year that we took Walker are probably the same people who were complaining that we took Zach. And here's the thing, he's going to be a hell of a player for us. I really like these picks. I wish we had more draft picks so we could keep. There's a lot of good players that we could have drafted. Hard to get them all, but like you got to take someone, and I think they're doing a good job of coming in with their plan and sticking to it. I know, Big Mike, no center. I know, but
we'll come on to that.
There's still a chance.
I've seen that Dorian Williams has just gone, the linebacker that I really liked him and had him in. There weren't many people who had him in round 3. I'm removing the players from my board as they come off. There weren't many people who had him in round 3. I did. And I think that's a really good pick for the Bills. Well done to the Bills. Good pick by them. Super chat's coming here from Ty. I'm surprised the Broncos still had John's phone number. I love that. Love that. A good super chat and a good witty remark.
I also really like the trade for us. A third next year?
Well, we'll come on to that. I mean, okay. I want to respond to what you were saying there, because what you have said, and people get complaining about it. People complain about the Ken Walker pick. And then the minute the reason they complained about it, Robbie, is they'd re-signed Rashard Penny, and it was like, well, you can just get a running back later. You've got Rashard Penny back. And then Rashard Penny got injured, Kel surprise, a few weeks into the season. And then Ken Walker was the best thing since sliced bread. So who's to say that if Ken Walker gets hurt 6-7 games into the season and the running game completely collapses, everyone's going to be complaining about that, and the offense is going to stall. Now they've secured the future there. You can use both running backs. The league is very much a multiple back system these days. And if you actually look, I was writing this down, Robbie, just before we came on onto the stream. This isn't a Seahawks thing, is it? The Falcons had a 1,000-yard rusher last year. They drafted Bijan Robinson 8th overall. The Detroit Lions have got running backs on their roster, Robbie. They take Jahmyr Gibbs with the 12th overall pick. Charbonnet comes off the board. It started a run at running back where we've seen a whole bunch of running backs coming off the board. Sometimes people act like the Seahawks are this crazy team that only worry about running backs. The NFL values running backs more than a bunch of people on Twitter. It's just a simple fact of that. And do you know what? There are some teams, Robbie, that are going to throw it all over the yard, and they're going to do that. And you can win that way. It's been proven. You can also win by running the ball very effectively, playing off that, playing good defense. There are teams that do that very, very well as well. So, let's not try and pretend that there's only one way to win here. The Seahawks have got two top running backs, in my opinion. Zach Charbonnet has been a blog favorite for a long time. We can't talk about everybody all of the time, Robbie. And when we've come on streams and we've done videos, what have we talked about? We've talked about quarterbacks. We've talked about pass rushers. We've talked about centers. We haven't been talking about Zach Charbonnet because you can't talk about everything. We'd have to do a show every day if we wanted to cover every single player. And I know I haven't got the time to do that. I suspect that you haven't either, Robbie, to do a stream every single day to talk about every single player. But a year ago, cast your mind back to the 2021 season, we were talking about Zach Charbonnet on the blog, talking about what a good player he was. It was a bit of a disappointment that he didn't declare for the last draft when we sort of viewing him as a possible, running back one for Seattle. He comes back to UCLA, has another great season last season, and I thought he was a legit top 50 player, Robbie. Had him going in exactly this range. And it's a best player available pick again. They had him rated higher than the players that people are complaining about. John Michael Schmitz, a lot of people liked him. I thought he was a good player, Robbie, that could go second round, possibly third round. If you'd have said to me, who's the better player, who's the more talented player, Zach Charbonnet or John Michael Schmitz, I'd have said Zach Charbonnet. And I think he's a really, really good player. And on Derick Hall was the top pass rusher left on my board. I had him down as a high second round pick, top 40, top 45 pick, Robbie. Alpha male. Auburn's season was a disaster zone with that. I can't remember the coach's name, Robbie, but it was a disaster zone. And he got fired mid-season, and that easily could have spiraled out of control. By all accounts, if you listen to people who know Auburn, Derick Hall kept that thing on track. His presence in the locker room, the little graphic that I've made for this video, you go and have a look at that. It's got a big fat C on his chest. They've brought him in here, not just to rush the passer, which he's good at, but also because he is going to be the man in that locker room. The man. The Seahawks have got in Devon Witherspoon and Derick Hall, Robbie, with these two picks, players who have got at least the potential to have the impact in that locker room that people like Cam Chancellor had. And they've been missing that. They've been a soft touch too often, the Seahawks. They've not had enough men with bollocks out there on the field. They've drafted two of them this year with Devon Witherspoon and Derick Hall. That's important for me, Robbie. I like this. I posted a tweet earlier. Everyone's seen that massive hit that Devon Witherspoon delivered on that highlights video. That's the reason I love football. It's different to other sports. You can violently hammer somebody in the open field and run them over and celebrate afterwards, and it's called a good play. I love a bit of that. Derick Hall and Devon Witherspoon are going to bring that back to Seattle. And if you can't get excited about that, I'm sorry. I feel bad for you. Simple as that.
Yeah, just one more thing about Zach. He's a great third down back because he can block. He's a good pass blocker too. He takes on, he blitzers really, really well, and he has a good eye for seeing where they're coming from and protects the quarterback, and he can catch the football. This is I think this is this was a great pick. I mean, I again, positional value. I think some people see center, defensive tackle, or these other positions as more of a high need, and with the players available, but you're getting a hell of a player, and I think best player available speaks volumes for this guy. I'm really excited about it.
The other thing we've got to remember here, Robbie, is I've seen some of the reaction that other people have had. They should have taken Keanu Benson, and I liked. They should have taken John Michael Schmitz. I would have liked that as well. People, you've got to remember here. Like
I've been banging on the center drum for a while, so I get
that's
it.
fine. But Keanu Benson, right? What is Keanu Benson? What is, because people just look at I think are looking at a player who gets talked about positively and he plays a position of need. What actually is Keanu Benson? He is somebody who's going to fill the space up front. He is going to provide a little bit of pressure, and he's quite versatile, so he can play the 1 and he can play the 3 and he can play the 5. So you can move him around. Is he a game wrecker? No. He's a solid defensive tackle, and he will be a solid defensive tackle for some time. When you watch him, I don't personally, Robbie, look at him and think, wow, he screams 2 contract player who you're going to be desperate to keep. I think he's a good rotational defensive tackle who can do a job for teams. I think a lot of players like that come into the league, quite frankly. And I think there's still some left on the board who maybe they don't get as high a grade as Keanu Benson, but can come in and do a very similar job for 4 years, if that makes sense. And then with the center position, John Michael Schmitz, he's about 23, 24 years old. I thought he really struggled with his angles, Robbie. If you had him blocking up front, and if you need him to reach block and you do all of that, he's fine. He's more than fine. And the biggest skill that he had is he gets his hands inside consistently in the right place. That's a good thing for him. And that made him a useful player. But you attack him from the angles, and he just did not have the footwork to cut those pass rushes off, Robbie. And it's all well and good saying get a center, get a center, get a center. When teams work out where you can attack him, if he's getting beat, no one's going to be thinking about, great, we've got a center. Everyone's going to be complaining that they picked the wrong one or it was a bad decision. Just because you pick a center in the late second doesn't mean they're going to be Creed Humphrey. We've got to be realistic there. You can't just draft for the position.
Yeah, and you make a good point right there. I think a lot of us are burnt by the Creed Humphrey, D. Eskridge shenanigans. And I think that's where a lot of it stems from. But so you make a good point there.
Yeah, and you can't magic a top center into existence. You just can't. And the one thing, what I'm basically saying is there's a decent chance that John Michael Schmitz will be an average starter, and there's a decent chance that Keanu Benson will be an average starter. I think there's a chance that Zach Charbonnet, Robbie, could become a really good running back. Somebody who can, he's going to be, hopefully in a 1-2 punch. But if he needs to play 17 games, he can get you a whole chunk of yards and lead your running attack. So I think he can be more than an average starter. And with Derick Hall, the comparison that I think it's so obvious, and it's maybe a little bit lazy, Robbie, because they both went to Auburn. It's Carl Lawson, who's just got a massive contract to leave the Bengals to go and play for the Jets. Not just, it was like a year or 2 ago. So if the Seahawks are getting that in the top of round 2, that's a good player. People forgot about Carl Lawson because he had the injury when he went to New York before he even played a down there. But he's a really good player. Now, can Derick Hall become a league-leading pass rusher? I don't know about that. We'll see. But he's got a 1-5-5 10-yard split, Robbie. That's an elite 10-yard split for his size. He ran a 4.20 short shuttle. That's a fantastic short shuttle for his size. He's got length. We've talked about his attitude and his aggression, Robbie. You've got to work on him. You've got to try and mold him into a more rounded rusher because it's a little bit predictable at times. But he's got all of the traits and all of the attitude and all of the intensity, Robbie, to be a really good pass rusher. He's got more upside than Keanu Benson, and he's got more upside than John Michael Schmitz. So what are we doing here? You're either doing best player available or you're not. You can't say, well, I like best player available, but now that a need has crept up, I want to abandon that and just pick players for the sake of it. I think this is clear that they're going best player available, high character, who's a Seahawk, change the complexion of that locker room. Big guys, couple of bamfs in there, Robbie, and I'm down with that. I'm down with it. Hey.
Yeah, I'm in for it. Michael Wilson from Stanford just went, by the way. See that?
Yeah, I like Michael Wilson. He's a bit slow. Michael Wilson, a little story on Michael Wilson. I dropped him around because of this. I got in touch with him about an interview. He agreed to do it, and then we never heard back from him. I'm only joking that I dropped him around for that, but I'm just little story there. He's maybe a little tardy when it comes to interviews. Mike sent a super chat in. He says, both great players in the second round, but I can't get past no quarterback. There were 5 good ones worth taking. Well, everyone knows that I liked Will Levis, but the league's determined that he's a high second round pick. And the Seahawks weren't the only ones who passed on him. So it is what it is. 3 quarterbacks went off the board before Seattle picked up 5. And I didn't see, Robbie, a pathway to trading up to get a quarterback. Texans took Stroud at 2. They weren't going to trade out of that spot. The Panthers trade up to number 1. If the Seahawks had tried to trade up to number 1, they'd basically you had to give him 5, 20, and maybe one of these second round picks, Robbie, and maybe a player, because that's what the Panthers gave up to move up. So I don't think that was realistic to move up to number 1, if they even graded somebody worthy of doing that. And the Cardinals at number 3 were always going to much rather trade with Houston than Seattle. And Houston gave up a haul to move up there and get Will Anderson after CJ Stroud. And the Colts weren't going to trade down because they wanted a quarterback themselves. So I don't see the route to get to the top 3. And as much as I liked Will Levis, the league decided they didn't. And, before the draft, I said, I'm going to trust John Schneider, whether he takes one of these quarterbacks or whether he doesn't. He's got my faith on the quarterback position, Robbie. So I appreciate, Mike, that you wanted a quarterback. I think a lot of us did. I wanted to be able to look at the future and go, that's our guy for the next 10 years. But you can't force it, can you, Robbie? You can't take Will Levis just because, or because Rob said he likes him. You've got, there has to be I think there has to be a process here where you can't force things. And, what's going to happen now is what I was hinting at yesterday. Next week, I'll be watching quarterbacks. All summer, I'm going to be watching quarterbacks again. Here we go. Another year of this. But, it can be quite fun, Robbie.
It can. There are still some quarterbacks that I like in the later rounds, but they don't give you kind of the hope for the future that, the top 5 would have given you. But there are guys I still like, and maybe we can.
You like Jaron Hall a lot, don't you?
I really do. I really do like Jaron Hall, and yeah, and I like Clayton Tune as well from Houston. There's just a couple of guys that I wouldn't mind stashing on the practice squad to see if they could develop into something. But they just don't give you that shiny new car thing that you would expect when you pick a quarterback. You know what I mean? But
I know exactly what you mean. Like, there's that when you take one early, and it's, for example, Anthony Richardson. You think, wow, this guy could easily be Josh Allen, and there's every chance that he will be. And when you take somebody in round 4, round 5, Robbie, you just don't have that sort of same hope and belief, do you? There's always a chance they'll be cut in a couple of years instead. So yeah. I get it, but it is what it is. Like, there's nothing they could do. There's nothing you could do about it. And I think what they have done is a fair pivot. If they're even interested in the quarterbacks at all, we will never know. They're never going to come out and go, yeah, we didn't like these guys, or yeah, we loved them all. We're never going to know the answer on that. So I'm comfortable with it. I like what they're doing. So, but I appreciate the super chat. This one's from DJ Jerry Nice. Of the top 30 visits, who do we like in rounds 4 to 7? I've got the top 30 visits here. Most of them, Robbie, are still available. DeJuan Jones has fallen down the board because of character. But you've got Jamie Robinson, Jordan Howden, Jerick Reed, Braden Daniels, Adetomiwa Adebawore still there, Robbie, which is a bit surprising. I wonder if there's an injury issue or something there, because I think he's too good to still. I mean, we'll see. So Lance Zierlein had him in round 3, so maybe I've overestimated. But the testing numbers are fantastic. Anthony Bradford's still there, Jordan McFadden, Calvin Avery. I think some really interesting nose tackle later on. Drake Thomas, Jartavius Martin's gone. Charlie Jones, the receiver, probably not going to go with him now. Nick Herbig, Robert Cooper, Jake Andrews is a center. Maybe they like him a lot. Take him a bit later on. and the other guys are gone who visited. So they're the known top 30 visits. Of that list, Robbie, I am intrigued in Calvin Avery as a nose tackle. I'm very interested in Jordan McFadden and Anthony Bradford. Adebawore, obviously, and I think some of those safeties, Robbie, are very interesting as well. So I think there's still a decent group there.
Yeah, there's two safeties that I really like that are still available, and I actually don't know if they're going to go safety, but if JL Skinner keeps falling and they want to take him, I would not be mad about that. And Jamie Robinson, safety out of Florida State, I really like him as well.
JL Skinner, good shout. This one here from a square says, are there starters at centre and nose tackle available? Luke Wypler's still there, Robbie. Yep. And I read, Bob McGinn's scouting reports were saying that he's a 5th, 6th rounder, which I find hard to believe, but he's still on the board. So his type of centre, that Brian Allen is the player that he compared himself to, and Brian Allen was a 4th round pick. So if he's still there in round 4, I mean, this was always the thing, is people were going, oh, don't take a centre in round 2. I'd rather have Luke Wypler. If you can get Luke Wypler in round 4, who's, for me, I've got Luke Wypler in the back end of round 2. I think they've done the right thing. If they can get Luke Wypler, they can do the right thing. You don't take Schmitz at 52. You take Wypler in round 4 if you can get him. I mean, that's what I would say to that. And here's the other thing, right? So this is one thing I really wanted to mention. I didn't put it in my notes. We have to remember, Robbie, the scheme and the system and the influences for Seattle. Now, whether people like it or not, the Rams, I know Rams have just spent a 2nd rounder on Steve Avila. I get that. But the Seahawks spent a 1st on a tackle and a 3rd on a tackle last year. So it's not like they've not done anything on the offensive line. And they've got a 3rd rounder in Damian Lewis who's starting at guard. The Rams have always just plugged guys in, Robbie. Day 3 guys at centre and converted tackles, and they plug them in at guard. And that's what they've done. And they've been able to have a very effective running game. So it's nice to have lots of high draft picks on your O-line and feel like you're set up. But the Rams have shown within this blocking scheme, it's not imperative. So I just put that out there. I want to see them draft a centre and a guard. I guarantee, Robbie, they will draft defensive linemen tomorrow. There are some good, solid offensive linemen there. And I've got a feeling I'm going to be punching the air a couple of times tomorrow. We'll see. Maybe they'll take people I've not scouted, and I'll be scratching my head and trying to work it out. It is what it is. But there's some good offensive linemen out there, and if they could get Luke Wypler, I still think at center, Oluwatimi at Michigan had a very solid career. I wasn't a big fan of Ricky Stromberg. The Shrine game put me off, but he's still there. Jake Andrews, Alex Forsyth, testing's awful, but he can do a job for you, as a day 3 center. So, and he's got a ton of grit. I mean, his story about his dad's really sad. It's really upsetting, actually, when you sort of watch and talk about that. So he's been through a lot. He's also a massive character, in terms of leadership. He's exactly the type of player they got. So it wouldn't surprise me, Robbie, if Alex Forsyth was the target at center tomorrow, the Oregon center. Wouldn't be surprised. That would get a fist pump from me because he's got bad testing, but a lot of the centers in this system do have bad testing. So I think that would be a really good pick. And then nose tackle, I mentioned Calvin Avery. I think Keandre Coburn's still there. Broderick Martin's very interesting athletically. Siaka Ika, Jacqueline Roy, people like that are still there, Robbie. There's still some good players at nose tackle and centre and offensive line.
Cameron Young's still available too, right?
Yeah, Cam Young's still there. I forgot him. He can play the wad, he can play the nose, he can play 3. Big hands, long arms.
He'd be a good pick too.
Would be a really good pick. This one from Save the Geese. Always interesting to see that username. Reddit and Twitter Seahawks going crazy. I like these picks. Best available every time. Well, let me be the first to say, Save the Geese. F Seahawks Twitter. What a bunch of self-important, overly opinionated. I'm not even going to say the word I was going to say.
Yeah, you just.
You can get stuff.
That's fine, yeah.
Get stuffed. You know, they always do this. They overreact, they complain, they moan about stuff, Robbie. They never come back and own up when they've been proven wrong. They just move on to the next thing, telling everybody how it is all the time, and then moaning when they don't get their own way, and then they enjoy the pick anyway. And Ken Walker showed that. Bore off. That's what I say. Boring. I have unfollowed pretty much everybody who talks about the Seahawks on Twitter because I'm just so bored of it. I'm so bored of the nonsense, the groupthink. I bet they're all hoping for Jalen Carter yesterday. Boring. Bore off. Move on.
All right, let's move on.
Graham B. Call me petty, but I love that we get to root against Denver next year too. Oh, that's a good point, actually.
That is a great point. Yeah.
Maybe that's why they made the trade.
Yeah.
Loving the best player available approach, but we need to take a center soon. Kraken just scored.
Hey.
Are you following the Kraken?
I am.
A Kraken man?
Yeah.
I will remind everybody at this point that I'm a former Vancouverite. So
that's right.
Canucks are dreadful. Honestly, there's been a few times when the Canucks have done stuff like they've traded for a player. Siaka Eke has just come off the board, by the way. He's been drafted by the Browns. People wondering about nose tackles. People wondering about trades and free agency moves and stuff like that, Robbie, and drafting and spending draft picks. And the Canucks just are an absolute, oh my word. I'm glad I don't write Canucks draft blog. That would be painful. If people think moaning about the Seahawks was a thing, like moaning about the Canucks would be something else. Okay, so thanks for that, Graham. A lot of people laughing in the comments about the rant. This one from Cisco says 4 picks, 4 seriously good players who'll be the core to this team's future. What's not to like? I agree, Cisco. $9.99. I agree with that. I think it's been a good start to the draft, and like I said, big focus on character, big focus on best player available. It makes sense. Robbie, I think that also because they're not going with a quarterback this year, obviously, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to surround Geno Smith because Geno Smith is going to be the starter next year now. It's still a prove-it year for him. The contract says so. If he doesn't earn the future starting ability because he doesn't deliver, then he's going to be off, and that's going to create a dilemma. And that's, I suppose, is the problem, Robbie, and it's why I'm open, I guess, to drafting maybe a DTR tomorrow or somebody like that, Robbie, just to make sure that you can. God, the Niners have drafted a kicker in round 3. I've just seen that. They've just drafted Jake Moody, the kicker. The Niners have drafted a kicker in round 3. We'll let the live chat deal with that. Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah, in terms of the quarterbacks, I'm open to that just so you've got somebody who can come in and develop. And if Geno Smith bombs, at least you've got somebody under contract because next year, if Geno bombs, Robbie, they'll cut Geno to get out of the contract. And Drew Lock's on a 1-year deal. And then it's panic stations because then you're in that sort of, what are you going to do? Are you going to trade for a quarterback? Are you going to sign one? Are you going to essentially be looking for next year's Jimmy Garoppolo? You know, is it Kirk Cousins when he's inevitably released by the Vikings? You know, you don't want to get into that game. You want to actually have somebody that you're working on, Robbie. So they haven't got that. So I think drafting someone tomorrow wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. But at the same time, is that player ever going to realistically start for you? So I get that that's a bit of a problem. But given that Smith is starting next year, giving him Jackson Smith and Jigba and giving him another running back, he's got no real complaints now, Robbie. Everything's set up for Geno to succeed, isn't it? You know, he's got DK, Tyler, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, tight ends on the roster already, Robbie. Bookend talented tackles. Everything's set up, isn't it, for offense?
I mean, you would think so. I would still like to see us, maybe do something. I think the tight end position is something we needed to take care of. I thought maybe in this draft as well, drafting someone for the future just because so many guys are out of contract next year. But yeah, I mean, even if they keep everyone that they have on the roster right now, I mean, this is looking like a pretty damn good, formidable offense that could really put some points on the board. And if Zach and Kenneth Walker Jr. can really keep the running game going, keep the defense off the field, that's going to help us out even more. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy what we're doing. You're muted, Rob.
Apologies. I was just looking at the players that have been coming off the board here, Robbie. So in the last few picks, I noticed that Siaka Ika wasn't the only nose tackle that went off. Broderick Martin, who I was just talking about, has been drafted as well. So he's a very athletic nose tackle. I had him down in round 5, 6 range. He's gone in round 3 to the Lions, which is quite interesting. And Ricky Stromberg, the center, has been drafted by Washington as well. So I'm just taking these players off my board as we speak here. So with Ika and Martin going off the board, Robbie, and with Stromberg coming off the board, some of the positions, some of the players at the positions that we've been talking about here, they're starting to come off. How do you feel about that? Is it? I mean, is it? I suppose there are still a lot of good players out there, Robbie. But the Seahawks, are they in danger of missing out completely on the centers and the defensive tackles?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, and maybe they planned that the whole time. Maybe they didn't, or maybe the guy that they really wanted didn't follow them, and then this is their backup plan. I also think we need to go linebacker. I think we still need another linebacker as well. Not the best linebacker draft, but we're starting to get into that range where there's some I think good value for the linebackers in this range. So it's another way we could take it as well. But it's definitely possible we could miss out on a center, and they may really like Evan Brown a lot. They may think he's it. Then don't need to worry about it.
I mean, it's certainly true that you could draft a center and they might not even beat that guy out, Robbie.
It's true.
There's no guarantee that John Michael Schmitz was going to come in and just own the job. Noah says, thanks for all the article streams and work leading up to the draft. You nailed the analysis and deserve a ton of credit. How is our cap space? It's not good, Noah. It's not good. I mean, that's going to be a talking point, Robbie. How do they haven't drafted any of the top tight ends. They're all gone. All of the top tight ends are gone now, Robbie. So I think it's incredibly unlikely that they are going to. There's only 3 picks left today, by the way. It's incredibly unlikely that they're going to, I would say, trade Noah Fant at this point, which was the easy $6.5 million save there, Robbie. So they're going to have to create some room, aren't they? I would imagine. If it's to go and get Poona Ford back, to go and get Shelby Harris back, maybe that they are going to have to get some money here. Maybe they're not a team that borrows on the credit card, there, Robbie. So I think it's really hard to negotiate with Nwosu right now because he will have all the leverage in those talks, but there's nobody else to cut. So I wonder what they do, Robbie. I mean, unless Tyler Lockett, they just think, well, he's going to play and we can trust him and he's not going to let us down, so we will borrow on his contract. But that can be a dangerous game. That can get you in cap trouble down the line.
Designated June 1st cut Jamal Adams.
Do you know what? If they'd have drafted a safety maybe already, then I would have said it's viable. It doesn't feel viable now, does it? Because they've not taken a safety.
No, but I mean, I still think there's some good ones out there, right? JL Skinner, I think it's a good one. I think Jamie Robinson is another good one. Like, I think there are safety positions there are players at the safety position that could come in and I think still do a really good job. So, yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
I mean, I'm not against it, as people won't be surprised to hear me say, but they've just talked constantly about him. Like it would be a really weird thing to do, like talk him up, and then go, "Yep, see you later, mate." I mean, the only thing I can think is maybe they could go to him and say, "Look, we need some money." I don't know. Is he prepared to do that? Is Quandre Diggs prepared to do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Would Gino do it? I don't know. Is there somebody out there who is willing to sacrifice money now, or maybe I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not a cap expert, far from it. Do you get more now, but it lowers the cap hit, and it means that the team takes on more responsibility down the line? I'm not sure, but anyway, this one from Hans. Hans, thank you for the super chat. Thanks, Rob, Robbie, and team for everything you do. How do you rate the selection of picks from our division conference rivals so far? Is there anything scary? I am going to have to, Robbie, get the draft tracker on.
Yeah, me too.
To see what everybody's doing. So I'll kind of just waffle on while I'm opening the draft tracker. I don't think there's any, apart from maybe the Texans, Robbie, just because I just liked that double move. I thought that was quite exciting to sort of go up and be bold, especially when you've got extra stock. I quite like teams being bold. So I quite like that. I don't think there's any team that I'm looking on with great envy. I mean, the Colts have basically used my, they've taken players that they took Anthony Richardson, they took Josh Downs, they took Julius Brents. So that was like a really like Seahawks draft bloggy kind of blog collection. Seahawks draft bloggy blog, that doesn't make any sense. It's 4:00 in the morning. So the Niners, Robbie, I love Jair Brown, who they took as their first pick at safety. And he's kind of like a Seahawks type pick, big character, very productive, like heart and soul type. So I like him. But then they've drafted a kicker in round 3 and a fairly bang average tight end in round 3. And if there's one team, Robbie, who is good at wasting third-round picks, it's the San Francisco 49ers. So are you scared by anything you heard there?
No, and don't they have like 7 third-round picks or something stupid from like all the comp picks they got?
They've got 3.
Yeah, they got some asinine number of comp picks this year, and I remember thinking this is ridiculous.
So here's the Rams collection: Steve Avila, guard; Tennessee's Byron Young, the edge rusher; and Kobe Turner, the defensive tackle. I've got to say, Robbie, I am not remotely scared by that.
No. I do like Byron Young.
Not bothered. The Tennessee rusher.
Yeah.
I
liked him.
It was okay. I preferred the other Byron Young. And then Arizona, Paris Johnson Jr., BJ Ojulari, Garrett Williams, who's got a serious injury, and Michael Wilson. I am not worried about that, Robbie, at all.
I do like Michael Wilson. I know he's slow, but I just really like him.
Are you worried about him, though?
No, I'm not worried about him. No. I mean, nothing that there's no one that anybody's drafted that made me worried. I think the last time I was actually legitimately worried when another team drafted was when they drafted Frank Gore, and I just remember thinking, son of a, like, I just don't want to deal with that guy because I just felt like he was just going to be really good. But that's
really going back.
I mean, really dated myself here.
I mean, so the day's finished. The round 3 is finished now. Mekhi Blackman, who I had in day 3, is gone at the very end of round 3. So I'm going to pull up what remaining picks the Seahawks have using Wikipedia, so that we can talk about this, because there was a lot of surprising picks there for me, Robbie, and there's a lot of surprising players still on the board. Yeah. And there is one other thing.
6 picks away is our next pick.
Can we talk quickly about the defensive line before we go into this? Mm-hmm. So people have been complaining, obviously, that there's, and people asking, can we share the screen so we can see who's left at the top of the board? Because it's not I'd have to load it onto Seahawks Draft Blog to do that. So it's a bit fiddly to do that while I'm in the middle of a live stream. So apologies. Defensive line, the depth is a major issue, Robbie, isn't it? The depth is an issue there. They basically just have Jaron Reed and Draymond Jones. But people wondering, when you needed a blue chip player, you needed a big name, Robbie, somebody who could come in and do that. Oh, this is why they had to draft Jalen Carter. But they've signed Draymond Jones. They were banking. They didn't sign Draymond Jones for massive money on the first day of free agency because he needed someone to hold his hand. They signed Draymond Jones, Robbie, to be an impact pass rusher, didn't they? They signed him to be that guy, and they put Jaron Reed as a solid starter next to him. If they're going to play 3-man fronts, basically they just need a nose tackle there. And John Schneider, a couple of weeks, about a month ago, was saying, if you can be nose tackle in college, you can play nose tackle in the NFL. If you're a 2-down run stuffer, you can kind of do that job, almost like playing down the position of nose tackle, Robbie. So if you get a big body, let's say they go and get Cameron Young, who could come play a bit of nose tackle, Robbie, or Jacqueline Roy, who played a ton of snaps for LSU. As a 3, that's okay, isn't it? And then you just got to get some depth. And yeah, you know what? It'd be great to have Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw and DeForest Buckner lining up in the middle. But it took the Niners 9 years to put that defensive front together. This is second draft in a rebuild, Robbie. So if they can get some depth in it, and we'll talk about the options still left available in a moment. They can still make some moves here to have a defensive line that's worth talking about, can't they? And I really like the Draymond Jones signing and the Jarran Reed signing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's still talent to be had. I mean, the draft isn't over. We got some guys like I really like Cameron Young. Trying to see. I'm trying to pull up your board now too to see who's out there.
Well, I've got the board here. Shall I run through the options for you, or the players that I really, really like? I've been trying to delete the names as we've been talking, so it's a challenge. So I might have accidentally left some people off. So the names that stick out for me, Robbie, are Luke Weipler at centre, is still available, and Chandler Zavala, my guy, is still there. Just an arse kicker at guard. DeJuan Jones is still there, and at some point you have to consider him for talent, Robbie. I know they are going big on character, but at some point you've got to think, what about the talent aspect of this?
Right. I mean, the Chandler Zavala guy. Like, if you're not going to grab a center and you bring in a badass guard to come in and he is a badass as well.
So he's intense. Adetomiwa Adebawore still there, Robbie. I don't know what's going on, if it's an injury or maybe, like I say, I've just overrated him. I wouldn't be the only one. You know, a lot of people had him a lot higher than this. Pretty much everybody had him higher than this. But if you could get a 280-pound, 34-inch arm athletic dynamo in the 4th round, Robbie, what a great pick that would be. You know, that's another impact defensive pass rusher for you.
Yeah.
Khalil Ringo still available, Robbie? That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, that is weird.
Again, you don't know if it's an injury thing. I mean, I know that he's a bit stiff and a bit straight line, but still, 4th round. Like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
So just sort of going through a few other names. Cameron Young, who we've talked about. Mora Ajomo. I've got one linebacker left in my top 3 rounds. That's Henry Tuo, who Carroll did spend a lot of time looking at. He could be an option there. In terms of the safeties, you mentioned J.L. Skinner. There's also Jamie Robinson, Jay Ward, Jason Taylor, Christopher Smith, and Antonio Johnson left in my 3rd round range. I have to say also, I'm really like when I see something like Antonio Johnson still available here. He was like being mocked in the 1st round, and I spent the whole college football season going, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. So it's validating to see this still on the board in round 4, because I thought I was being generous in round 3, and he's still there. Offensive line other than Zavala, Anthony Bradford, Jordan McFadden, Emil Ekiyor, Andrew Voorhees, who's obviously got the ACL that he hurt at the combine, and other players. You know, I don't think they're going to go for another running back, but Israel Abanikanda and Kenny McIntosh. There'll be somebody joking now, Robbie, that they will go for another running back. Kenny McIntosh and Israel Abanikanda are still there, but again, I don't think they're going to go that way. So they're kind of like the best players left on my board. And then sort of in round 4, Robbie, the players I've got rated in round 4 could be options. I've got Dorian Thompson-Robinson in round 4. If they took him in round 4, I'd be fine with it. In terms of the tight ends, I'm less arsed about them now. I'm kind of done with the tight ends. The top ones have gone. You've got 3 tight ends. I don't think you chase that now. Nick Broker, guard I quite like. You've got Oluwatimi, the centre. There's some more edge rushers, but I don't think they're going to go down that right direction. Jacqueline Roy, Tyler Lacey's, I think, is a good defensive lineman they could add. There's a ton of cornerbacks still left. But again, I don't think they're going to go down that direction. And then the other safeties in round 4, DeMarco Helms, Jordan Howden, John Torchio, who's got no buzz at all this offseason, Jake Reed, Daniel Scott, Brandon Hill. So talent's thinning out a little bit, Robbie, but there's still enough guys there that you think, okay, they can still make some moves here.
Yeah, and we've got 2 in the 4th now, right?
2 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th. So they're going to pick 108th is their first pick. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks into round 4.
Yep.
So there'll be 5. So 5 players are going to come off the ball before Seattle picks again. So they should be able to get a good player there. They're not waiting forever.
No.
That's the Denver pick, isn't it?
Yep.
And then they have 1, 2, 3 in round 4, which is the Seahawks native pick. And then in round 5, they have 151 and 154. So 4 picks. Basically, they'll have had 2 in the first and the second, and 2 in the fourth and the fifth, and none in the third, when all said and done. Which is fine, Robbie. I think it's a chance to. If they came out tomorrow with Luke Weipler, Chandler Zavala, Cameron Young, and Baware or To'o, I think that'd be a really decent. That could be pushing them back up to A+ range there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that there's a lot of good talent left, and I really like what they've done so far. I think, can we talk about this trade real fast with the Denver Broncos? Because I really like the fact that we just got a 3rd round pick from them for just trading down 12 picks or something like that into the 3rd to the top of the 4th. Like, I mean, that's I feel like we just fleeced them again.
Well, it was a bit more of a jump than that. So you've gone from 83 to 108. So in fairness, you have dropped 25.
But still,
places.
I mean,
it's nearly a round. So they've gone back nearly around
25. Okay, everyone's giving me shit. 25, got it. I still feel like we fleeced them.
And then you get a 3rd round next year. So,
and as Tommy says, it could be a high 24 3rd round pick.
It could be. I mean, I think Sean Payton will do a better job than Nathaniel Hackett did of managing that team. But I mean, look, you've basically kicked the can down the road on the 3rd rounder, Robbie. Because I don't think the Broncos will be that good that they'll be picking that much later than 83, if at all. So you've kicked the 3rd rounder into next year and got another 4th rounder. And if you look at your board and go, well, okay, the value here is pretty similar to the value we're projecting at 108, then why not? And why not? And I was comfortable with the trade. There was not a player screaming off the board at the time that made me think they've got to go and get them. Do I wish they'd have maybe just been able to get a throwaway 5th or something in there as well, maybe for 25 spots, perhaps. But the 3rd round of next year, Robbie, it gives us an extra pick to think they've got a 1st, a 2nd, and 2/3. So why not? It's an interesting little move. So I'm in favour of the trade, as you are. I think we've pretty much covered everything other than maybe the last super chats. So, Redonkulous2 says, love the content, guys. I hope we double dip DTs tomorrow. Which 2 would you pick out of Jared Clark, Jacqueline Roy, Cameron Young, and Keandre Coburn? You got any thoughts, Robbie?
I'd go. I mean, if I could pick 2, I'd probably take Roy and Young.
I would take out of those. Yeah, I'd agree with you. Out of those 2, it's Roy and Young. I think that would be stout. It'd be solid. Thank you for the super chat. If anybody has a last super chat that they want to chuck in there, then feel free, because we are going to finish up very, very soon. So yeah, I mean, I think just to sort of put a bow on this day, Robbie, we can talk through a more general sort of overlook at the draft tomorrow when it's all done. I mean, we know what the result of the Russell Wilson trade is now. How do you feel about this team? Where do you think this team is? I think this is a team that is, with the players they've got, they're taking a step forward. I don't think they're taking a step forward to contention. I thought coming into this draft, Robbie, that there'd be another draft away, and I still feel that way. How are you sort of viewing it?
Yeah, I think if you look at it in terms of it being an actual rebuild, I think we're doing really well. I think you might be right. We're still going to compete. We're still going to be a tough football team. This isn't going to be an easy out for anybody. I think we're going to have some frustrating games, but I really like the moves that we're making. I think, on back of the draft that we had last year and the draft that we've already had this year, I'm really liking the moves, and I really want to see what they're going to do with these next picks that they're going to do tomorrow. But so far, I'm really, really enjoying it with some of the free agent signings that we've done as well. I haven't enjoyed how they've spent some of their free agent signings and the amount of money they've used and the resources they've put in. I think next year might be an opportunity for them to be a little bit better in financial situation. So I think that's where we could really start, improving. Other than that, I really enjoy it. I think you're right. I think if you look in terms of a rebuild, this is probably, another year away. Sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to see what Gino can do next year. I mean, people are saying, and it's not fair. We've got a super chat actually, and I'll read it out, put it up. Take 610 says every game this year is going to be the Raiders Lions games, and it's perfectly fair, Robbie, for someone to voice that concern given the state of the defensive line, because people want to see, but some improvement there in order to rectify the bad run defense. What I would say, though, is if they do find a way to create some money and Ford comes back and Harris comes back, Robbie, and they draft a couple of players here, well, you've pretty much got the line from last year, plus Jaron Reed, plus Draymond Jones, plus a couple of rookies. So how can anybody say that's not an upgrade? Like if you've essentially swapped Quinton Jefferson for Draymond Jones and I don't know, mine's gone blank, like Shelby Harris or El Woods for Jaron Reed, I think you're getting better. So I would just say patience before making any of those estimations. Like the Seahawks don't have to play a game tonight. There's still time to make some moves. And I know people are a bit tired of hearing that, but they have signed Draymond Jones. Can't keep forgetting that. And Jaron Reed. And there's still draft picks to come. And there are still players out there that were cut last year that are still there. The one thing I wanted to finish with you, Robbie, mentioning is, can you remember a few years ago when they were relying on Benson Mayowa and Bruce Irvin to rush the passer? Yeah. And they said the priority was to fix the pass rush. And it ended up being Mayowa and Irvin as their main pass rushers. And right now, they've got second-round pick Derick Hall, second-round pick Darrell Taylor, second-round pick Boye Mafe, decent free agent signing Uchenna Nwosu as a four-man rotation off the edge. I mean, that is so much better, isn't it, Robert?
So much better, yeah.
That is a proper rotation off the edge. I hope they can find a way to make the most of the fact they've got a really good rotation there, Robbie.
Yeah.
But it's such a big improvement, isn't it, to have that?
It would be nice to see. I mean, I don't like that the other day that Sherm was talking about bringing back Bruce Irvin, because if he's going to just take Boye Mafe's spot.
Sherm doesn't know what he's
I know, but I'm just saying if that actually happens, I'm going to be pissed, because I would rather have seen Boye Mafe play last year than having Bruce Irvin take up a bunch of snaps for no damn reason. So that's my only complaint. But yes, I hope this rotation seems a lot more dominant than what
we both like Richard Sherman, and we're open to him coming back. I wish Richard Sherman had stopped. I mean, like, every podcast is about Seattle. He's obsessed. Like, he only interviews Seahawks players. He only talks about the Seahawks. Like, his only piece about the draft was the Seahawks should draft Jalen Carter. Like, it's just when he talks about stuff, I think, oh man, just let it go. Like when he says Bruce Irvin might come back, it's like, Sherm, find some other things to talk. You can talk about other teams, man. You know, you're better than this. You don't have to be obsessed with Seattle all the time. Like, join the coaching staff, or get a gig at KJR or something, and have your own radio show. Then you can talk about them every day. Otherwise, it just seems a bit. No, I'm getting a bit tired of hearing what he's got to say about the Seahawks. Josh says, "Thanks, guys. Good stuff. Looking forward to find out who the DL block eaters we draft tomorrow. We own the 5th round. I do kind of own the 4th and the 5th round now."
Sure.
Josh, thank you for that super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for all of the super chats. Great numbers again in here. Robbie, the blog has crashed after every Seahawks pick so far.
I know, it's been super annoying.
I'm not trying to update the blog, and it's like it's crashed.
Yeah.
And then people log off a bit, then just enough to load it back up. The weird thing is like I'm paying extra to have the blog not crash. And it's crashing still, which I just can't thank everybody enough for the amount of traffic that is coming the way of Seahawks Draft Blog. That is crashing it every single time. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Loving the super chats, loving the amount of people who are watching this. I just appreciate all of you. And we've got one more day to go, Robbie, and it's all done.
502 site unfound.
I've seen that. That has been the words of doom on the blog when I've been trying to update the blog. So And Frank has sent a late one in. Coffee or tea for tomorrow? Thank you, Frank. Appreciate that. Thank you to everybody for those super chats. It is massively appreciated. I've enjoyed the draft. I've enjoyed watching it. I'm sad that after a whole year's work is about to come to a crushing end, and there's going to be a bit of blues at the end of the day tomorrow when it's all done. But
yeah,
we'll talk about it, and then we'll move on to 2024 very quickly. Right then, guys, thank you for that. Thank you, Robbie, for your time again. Love having you with us. David's just tucked in a very late super chat saying, why is Adi still available? And after seeing the Lions Day 2 picks across the 5 picks, can you see a wider strategy? And is this similar to how the Hawks approached day 3? Yeah, possibly so. I think you're probably right on the Lions. Why is Adi still available? It could just be an injury thing. It's definitely not a character thing. It's definitely not a physical profile kind of thing. I know that people wanted to see a little bit more from him on tape, but when I actually watched the tape, I thought it was really good. So again, I wonder if it's a medical thing or something. But then a player was drafted in Tyjae Spears, who's apparently got no cartilage in his knee or something, and there's only a 1 contract guy. So I don't know. But if the Seahawks take him in round 4, fist bump time, celebration time, champagne time. David, thank you for that late super chat. And we are going to wrap up now. Check out, I did 2 other instant reaction videos on the blog as well when they drafted Derick Charbonnet. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. I will do an article tomorrow, sort of wrapping up this day and what we've got so far. So keep an eye out for that. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel as well so you don't miss anything. And even though you've been chatting in the live chat, please go and leave a comment in the comment section as well on the video because it helps with the algorithm. On to tomorrow. Keep enjoying the draft, and we'll see you then. Bye for now.